The Cubs beat the Giants yesterday in extra innings by a final score of 5-3. Ian Happ provided the lumber that lifted the Cubs to a victory, avoiding a 4-game sweep out west. Now they head back to the Midwest. They take on Milwaukee for a make or break series, chasing the Brewers by almost 11 games in the division, but they can certainly get the season back on track with a strong series in Milwaukee. But can they do that? That's what we're going to talk about here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in that comment section. Let us know if that win against the Giants is swaying your thoughts into thinking this team can go on a run, or if you're grounded in believing that this team still is facing some struggles. But either way, here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? The Cubs beat the Giants yesterday, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. My name's Anthony Pasquale on Twitter at @Ant_Pasquale3. Make sure to find me on there. I'm always tweeting about the Cubs, who finally got back in the win column yesterday with a 5-3 win over the San Fran Giants. The Cubs we're up 3-0 early. Shota Imanaga gave you a strong start, quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs. But you're up 3-0. A wild 6th inning put it back square, 3 runs apiece. The last few innings went typical to the way the Cubs have been playing lately. Left some runners stranded, some bad at-bats with runners in scoring position. But to the bullpen's credit, they did not give the game away. And in extra innings, Ian Happ clubbed a 2-run homer to give the Cubs a 5-3 lead, and they were able to hang on in the bottom of the 10th inning, and it was Porter Hodge who got his first save for the Cubs. So let's get into the lineup a little bit. 5 runs, obviously. They came in only 2 innings that the Cubs scored, but got to give some credit where it's due. Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, and Nico Hoerner starting to hit. We'll start with Nico Hoerner, who's back at the top of the Cubs lineup. He had 3 hits yesterday, including a 2-run homer, his 3rd of the season. Over the last 7 games, he's starting to get the numbers up a little bit, hitting 296. He had a stolen base yesterday as well, a couple RBI, and overall just a strong game from Hoerner. Seiya Suzuki starting to get the slug back. Obviously homered 2 days ago in that game, and then yesterday had 2 hits, a double and a triple, so he's getting the ball to the gaps, the ball out of the ballpark a little bit. Definitely what you want to see out of Suzuki. We've talked about it. The first 2 weeks of the season, he looked like an MVP candidate. Then he got hurt, and it has been kind of tough sledding for Suzuki since coming back from that injury. But it's gotten a little bit better over the last week or so, and those power numbers certainly show it. Slugging .519 over the last 7 games. So hopefully he can keep that up, and a hot stretch is coming for him. And then Ian Happ, in the midst of a bit of a colder streak, he got red hot in the beginning of June, and then went on a brief 1-for-17 stretch, but he certainly delivered a huge hit yesterday. A go-ahead 2-run shot, also drew 2 walks, so he's seen the ball well. But that 2-run homer was probably his 5th or 6th game-altering swing of the bat in the last month or so. Mick has given him a lot of credit. I'll give him some credit too. He's the only Cub that during the stretch of tough times seems to put the team on his back and get you a win every once in a while. Now, he doesn't do it every day. He's not like Aaron Judge or Bryce Harper, or Shohei Ohtani, but he's good enough to do it every couple of games, once a week, which is better than the rest of this lineup is doing. Frankly, I'm really disappointed in Cody Bellinger. Last year with runners on, he was a guy you wanted up, and this year he just looks to be struggling in hitters counts. Like he's got a 2-1 pitch and he spoils it like he's down 0-2. His approach has just not looked great, and as a result, he hasn't really been driving the ball like we're used to seeing from Bellinger. But around this time last year, Bellinger really heated up, so we'll see if the summer months bring good things for Cody Bellinger. But let's talk about the Cubs now. After the win, they stand 6 games below 500, 1 game past the midpoint in the season. They're 38-44 on the year, and they stand 10.5 games behind the Brewers, who are on top of this division, who the Cubs will be playing later on today. But let's take a look at these wild card standings, because that's really where the Cubs are going to be battling. The Braves pretty much have that top spot all but locked up. Even if the Padres or the Cardinals were to catch them, I don't foresee the Braves slipping out of that top three. So aside from the Braves, that leaves the Padres and the Cardinals, who currently maintain those spots. Then the Mets, the Pirates, the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Nationals, the Reds, the Cubs, and then below there, you've got the Rockies and the Marlins. And the Rockies and Marlins are well out of reach from these positions. So let's look at those teams on the list. The Cubs, obviously, not only in last place in the NL Central, but last place of all the contenders for the wild card. They stand a half game behind the Reds, a full game behind the Nationals and Giants, a game and a half behind the Diamondbacks, 2 games behind the Pirates, a game behind the Mets, and then obviously 4 games out of that last spot against the Cardinals. There's still 80 games left. Obviously, a lot of ability to make up 4 games in these wild card standings. But the interesting thing, and we've talked about this a little bit, is tiebreakers. The Cubs did not have a tiebreaker with the Marlins or the Diamondbacks last year, which is why, even though they finished a game out of the playoffs last year, they really finished 2 games because they would have needed to beat either of those teams. So let's look at this list. The Padres won the season series 4-2 against the Cubs, so they will hold a tiebreaker. The Cardinals are currently up 1. The Cubs are 1-4 against them this season, so the Cardinals have the edge at the moment. There's still games to play against them. The Mets, that season series is over, and the Cubs, I believe, lost that season series 4-3. Same with the San Francisco Giants, 4-3. The Pirates have a 4-3 lead, but there's games left to be played. The Cubs have a 2-1 game lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have yet to play the Washington Nationals, and I believe the Reds, there's still some ground to be made up, but they have a small lead over the Cubs, I think 3-2, or maybe 4-3 at this current juncture. So the fact of the matter is the Cubs have a lot of ground to make up against teams that hold tie breaks against them, unfortunately. But the good news is you do have a lot of games left against the Cardinals, the Pirates, and the Reds, who are teams that you would like to be jumping in these standings, and you're going to get an opportunity to do so directly. You also still have all 6 left with the Nationals and another series left with the Diamondbacks. So those are things to keep your eyes on as this season progresses. This Cubs team, obviously 10.5 out of the division, 4 back of a wild card spot, but they're coming off a win, and they're heading into the time last year where they really started to click and go on a run, force the team to buy at the deadline and push the Cubs toward a playoff spot. Obviously, they collapsed in September, but as you look at this season, it was a series against the Brewers really that seemed to turn things around ever so slightly, because Ian Happ had that game where he had 2 outfield assists and the Cubs won an extra innings in that game. And it was in Milwaukee that it seemed like you pretty much accepted the fact that for the next month, you're going to be playing high leverage baseball games every day, essentially must win, do or die type of games, just to get you back into a position to make an effort at the playoffs. Unfortunately, the Cubs find themselves in that same situation once again. It feels bleaker, but through the same point last year, they stood at about the same point. So it's obviously a possible thing to turn it up a notch and start winning. The issue is you have to go out there and do it. And the Cubs get a great opportunity to do it against a team that they're chasing by 10.5 games in the division, the Milwaukee Brewers. Fangraphs currently has the Cubs with an 11.8% chance to make the playoffs. That is up ever so slightly after the win yesterday against the Giants, and a 3.5% chance to win the division. But obviously, the Cardinals just went on a hot stretch, and their percentage to make the playoffs rose all the way to 40%, and they're only 2 games above 500 right now. So all it takes is a winning streak, and the Cubs got one out of the way yesterday and need to keep it going against the Brewers. Like, that's the fact of the matter. We're past the point of return where we can continue to give away games that the Cubs need to win. If you get a good start, if you get a lead, you're going to have to do whatever it takes to win these games. We talked about it. The panic button is on, but now you got to play urgently because pretty soon you're going to have to make that decision to buy or sell. You don't get the whole month to make that decision. And you're going to have to start winning those games if you want to be a team on the buyer side, or at the very least, a team contending for a wild card position. The Cubs have a pretty good rotation set up to face these Brewers. Starts with tonight at 7:10. Jameson Taillon on the mound for the Cubs, 4-2 with a 2.90 ERA up against Colin Rea, a guy the Cubs have faced an awful lot so far in his career. The Brewers have a few pretty good matchups against Taillon. Yelich hits him very well, Frelick as well. And the Cubs, same with Rea. Morel, 2 for 3 against him. Bellinger has a homer. Nico Hoerner has 1 for 4 against him. Seiya Suzuki batting .500 against him. And then on Saturday, tomorrow, Justin Steele takes on Tobias Myers. Steele still looking for that first win, despite pitching like that Cy Young contender we saw last season. Myers, a guy the Cubs have faced earlier this season. Ian Happ hit him pretty well. Nico Hoerner, Christopher Morel hit a home run against him earlier. And aside from Willy Adames, who has 2 homers against Steele, the rest of the Brewers have kind of struggled against Justin, so you feel good about that. And then you look at this matchup on Sunday. Freddie Peralta, the Brewers ace, who hasn't been pitching that great for them. And then Kyle Hendricks, you see that whopping 6.87, but in a few starts, he's dropped that from under 10 to now 6.87. That's the matchup for Sunday. I'm really interested to see how that one goes. Hendricks has been really good against the Brewers in his career, and the Cubs have decent numbers against Freddie Peralta. Cody Bellinger is hitting .400 against him. He has a homer. Michael Busch has a homer against him. Seiya Suzuki has a homer against him, but doesn't really have a great average. Same with Ian Happ, but it's a guy that they faced a lot, and hopefully you find yourself on Sunday with a chance to go for a sweep or at the very least a series victory. I know that's wishful thinking, but that's where you have to be right now. You got to keep winning series, and you got to do it against teams that you're chasing in the standings. And that's kind of the Cubs' plan as they head to this weekend in Milwaukee. Craig Counsell's homecoming once again against the Brewers. It's going to be chippy. We've talked about it. Maybe the Cubs need some sort of fight or ejection or really boost to get the team back in the right mindset and go on a run. Maybe that happens against Milwaukee, a team that has gotten in a lot of chippy little arguments with other teams this season. Maybe this is where you see the Cubs' true colors, see them come together as a team and start winning ball games. That would sound good to me. Obviously, again, wishful thinking. I know that it hasn't looked bright for this team as of late, but I'll take a sip of the Kool-Aid. One win is enough to get me in the right mindset to hope that this team has better days ahead. But that'll do it for us on the Cubs Baseball channel. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, like and subscribe, ring the bell, jump in that comment section. Tell us how you're feeling about this team, how you're feeling about this series against the Brewers, and how you feel about the Cubs' last 80 games left and what you think they can make of it. But for now, go Cubs. Hopefully, when we talk to you guys tomorrow, it's after another Cubs win, and they can look to have a winning streak against the Brewers. Go Cubs.